Hello, I'm Diana Angeles, and this is my artifact for my final for the personalized learning course. I decided to do a video only because I've been getting used to making a video lately for this course when it came to implementation activity 1 and 2. So I feel comfortable going ahead and giving my thoughts on what I've learned through this course, my commitments, and my intentions for the future. So, what I learned for this course throughout the year is my campus has already been doing blended learning for 4 years, and I got to start implementing it in my classroom in when I was teaching second grade. Now I'm in a first grade classroom, so I had to kind of switch my mindset a little bit on how to go about it because the mentality of the child is a little bit younger. But what I've learned about personalized learning and blended learning is that you really truly have to understand how the personalized learning framework really works. You have to understand all the categories to really make it function in your classroom. Another thing that I've learned is that you have to advocate for your students' learning and personalize at their level, meaning you have to know their strengths and weaknesses, and you have to help them learn how to create goals once you make them learn how to understand how to analyze their data. Also, it's been a big shift from going traditional classroom where the teacher is always the leader of the classroom. Now it's an environment where the students are leading the classroom with the teacher facilitating their learning and being there to make those growths and those strengths and weaknesses that they have. Another thing is have them become more critical thinkers, put that challenge in their learning, which is important to me because I realize that a lot of students that are in the college level are not succeeding because in their elementary, middle school, and high school education, that challenge wasn't there. So when they experience the college life, it becomes too difficult because that's where they're really going to have to critical think. And since they're not getting exposed to their prior education, they're not going to be successful in college. So that's one thing I also learned about this course is to have them critical think, hit those hotspots, which is the higher order thinking skills, and implement those DOKs so they can continue challenging themselves and learning how to critical think throughout any content area. Also, another thing that I've learned in this course is to provide a variety of resources and tools, methods, because all students learn differently. Not everybody learns the same way. So you have to have plenty of resources or tools for them to make that growth based on their learning style. And one important thing that I've really learned about personalized learning prior to this course, and even more now, is you got to make those true, meaningful relationships with the students. You got to make those connections with them. And the only reason I think is because that's when the child's going to trust you and you're going to trust the child, and your expectations are going to meet. And on top of that, the students will be able to have that confidence to hold themselves accountable for their own learning and also for their growth. Now for my commitments. As for my commitments in a blended learning classroom, personalized classroom, is I'm going to continue making those strong relationships. Because that's the only way the classroom's going to function. And that's the only way you're going to be able to earn the respect from the student, and the student's going to earn the respect from their teacher. Also provide those opportunities at all times for the student to critical think, to be creative, also to teach and learn on how to advocate for themselves. On top of that, you have to teach them how to hold themselves accountable for their data and how they're learning any concept. Um, Something else I've learned from the framework and some readings that we had to do aside from the activities we had to do within the course was teach them how to make adjustments when it comes to them doing any activity or when it comes to their learning. Because if the child can advocate for themselves and say that they don't understand something, then we want to make sure we teach them those steps on, hey, you know what, let's adjust what's going on in your personalized activity or your differentiated activity because you're not understanding. So let's look at what's going on so we can change it to somewhere where it's at your level and you're going to be successful. Or even for a student that's it's too easy for them to make to do those activities, um, and you want them to voice. You want them to voice and make another kind of choice on something maybe more challenging for them because maybe what is given to them is too easy. So those are some commitments I want to do with my students where they are able to, critical think, be creative, advocate for themselves, learn how to hold themselves accountable, and learn how to make adjustments with, of course, proper modeling and facilitating and doing that letting go stage, and making sure that, they'll be able to do it on their own. Um, Another thing is, one thing that's really important to me is um, I want to lead with a why. I want them to understand why they have to learn certain things. And also, I want them to be clear on the what. What is expected of them when it comes to when they have to be on their own and they have to facilitate their own learning. Um, on top of that, to be flexible. In other words, how are they going to be able to function in a personalized learning classroom? What is available for them based on resources, tools, or strategies or methods? And let them make their decision on how they're going to approach those tools and what's going to match their learning style and how they can figure out how to do those activities. And the last thing I want to talk about is on my intentions for the future when it comes to a personalized learning classroom or a blended learning classroom. Two things I learned was I kind of reflected that I need to work on some areas or categories within the framework. When it comes to analyzing, I've become really comfortable on looking at data and being able to analyze and see where my students are falling based on strengths and weaknesses, and designing activities and lessons that are going to help them make that growth. But the areas I really need to work on is the monitoring and the assessing. Um, there's times where I can monitor student goals. We're good at creating those goals, but the time frame I'm giving myself to kind of monitor to see if they're meeting those goals, I feel like it's taking a little bit longer than it should be. If something that I want to work on is that if I see that student's goal is being met sooner than their end date or their expected date, then I need to make that shift and, hey, you know what, let's visit this goal now instead of waiting, and us wasting time on continuing on other things that they can work on and continue making growth somewhere else. So that's one thing I really want to work on the monitoring. The other thing is the assessing. I'm so used to using the district assessments that we have for our content areas, also benchmarks that we have. And it's become such a norm that I'm so used to using only those kinds of assessments. But something I want to change and do for the future is come up with other kinds of assessments, like more checkpoints that are teacher created based on the areas I notice that students need to continue making growth, or just coming up with assessments that are challenging those strengths so those students won't lose that, I guess you can say, pathway. Um, Also, maybe make pre-assessments. We don't have pre-assessments in our districts that are made for us. So that's going to be a challenge because I'm already used to looking at the assessment to help me drive my instruction and know what I need to set in place in my classroom. But now I'm going to have to look at my post-assessment to know how to create a pre-assessment that I want to make for my students. Excuse me. So I can see what students know before that that concept is being taught. So those are the two things that I want to work on and make growth in, is creating other forms of assessments aside from what's given to us, and excuse me, sorry about that, and being more consistent with my monitoring. I do monitor, but I need to get out of that, how can you say it, that stage where I wait till that date comes. And I've seen it already happening where, you know what, I see this kid making growth. I need to put something else in place instead of waiting till that end date and that student losing focus or declining in their growth. So overall, that is what I've learned from this course. And to be honest, this course has made me realize a lot of things that I already have been put in place. But also, I wish this course would been maybe like a workshop, that campuses could go to and get an idea of what it is and how it works, and see that it is successful in the classroom before actually implementing it in your classroom. Even though we do it already, we're already differentiating, we're already tiering, and we are already personalizing. Even if we, before we were a blended learning personalized campus. But having that collaboration with other teachers through this course and the professors has made me kind of realize, like, hey, I'm on the right path. Or you know what, I need to make some adjustments to what I'm doing because maybe something's not functioning well, or I'm not, I guess you can say, establishing or implementing in my classroom correctly. So overall, this course has been kind of eye-opening. It made me realize and make me reflect a lot on me and my practices and what's been successful for my kids and not successful. Getting ideas from other colleagues in this course was awesome when we had to do the peer coaching, by sharing our glows and our grows, and it helped a lot, especially for the activities that were going to happen later on. I was able to kind of make adjustments, review what I was doing before so I can make that growth in my second activity. And as for my commitments, those are things that some are set in place, but I need to kind of bump it up a little bit more. And as for my intentions, definitely those are some growths that I'm going to have to focus on, especially in the upcoming courses I'm going to be taking. I'm going to be able to reflect a lot more on how I've been doing when it comes to my personalizing and my blending within my classroom.